Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time of the day you are privileged to listen to this presentation. You are welcome to this presentation. I'm aware we've probably listened or used this term before, risk. We've used it for different purposes in our professional lives, in our personal lives, and we have used it mostly correctly, sometimes in different ways and for different purposes. And what I'm trying to do is to clarify and explain or even probably demystify some of the use of this term, not just risk itself as an overarching topic. I know risk is like a very big topic in itself, but I will be focusing on a couple of the subtopics: risk appetite against risk tolerance. And I know we have either used it or heard it at different times for different purposes, but I will try and clarify some of the ways I think it should be used, and to hopefully change or really kind of convince some use cases and really kind of demystify how it might have been used differently before. So if we start from here, so risk, as it is on the screen, it says is the uncertainties which result from actions or inactions. So I know that is generally basic for all of us. So there are risks that comes with every action we take or the actions we do not. I will not really kind of be going into much details about it right now, but I think hopefully the use cases I'll be taking us through as we progress will clarify some of these points as we progress. So risk management, and I'm sure we've all used that before as well. So risk management, the process of risk management is, there are different schools of thought, so this is not like a silver bullet way or silver bullet cycle of risk management, but this is like one of the ways you can really manage risk. So first of all, we want to really identify the risk. So because you need to know, like I said earlier, for every action we take or the action we do not take, we are either missing or losing out on some things or taking advantage of some things. So you need to know that there are risks for everything or in everything, basically, but how you identify it to know what you need to do, if you have to do anything at all. Maybe you need to take some action or not take any action. And I will try and be giving us some examples and some use cases of things that we will probably all be familiar with in one way or the other as we progress. So risk assessment is how we just kind of assess the risk after identifying it. So you want to assess it by some means, which I'll be talking us through as we progress. Then once you've assessed it, then you want to treat it, you want to deal with it, you want to put some things in place to make sure the risk, it's not unmanageable. Basically, it's the risk that you can manage. It's the risk that you can be on top, rather than the risk overwhelming yourself or your organization, basically. And I think we need to remind ourselves that in every risk, even as we treat them, we cannot fully treat risk. There will still be residual risk. Basically, there will be residual risk. But you don't want a lot of risk. That's why we're looking for ways to really kind of treat this risk so that we will be able to manage the leftover risk and be able to move it to the next cycle, which is the risk reporting. So how do you now manage the risk that is remaining, which is the residual risk? So do you just want to leave it there? Do you want to continue to assess your situation and see like how you can actually bring down the risk even more where possible? So that is where the risk reporting comes in. So let me take you through what I've prepared here in terms of how we can actually deep dive into the management cycle. So like I said, you've already identified the risk. You know, if you did nothing, there is already an inherent risk. And if you did something, you probably reduce that or even amplify the risk as well, if you don't take the right action. So I think we need to understand there is always an inherent risk for everything we do or for every action we do not take. So for the risk assessment, how do we assess risk? We assess risk in different ways. So obviously there are different tools we can use to assess risk. I will not be going into details of all those tools that can be used, but we'll just kind of be talking about what we can easily or generally understand, or maybe what we've actually all used before. So you have risk assessments that can be done in a qualitative way, and another one that can be done in a quantitative way. So qualitative basically means generally there are no numbers to it. So you have risk. You can just call it like, oh, it is high risk, it is low risk, it is medium risk, and you can say, okay, it is likely to happen or it is unlikely to happen. So then if it happens, what are the impacts? So the impact could be, it could be high, it could be medium, it could be low. So you are not really kind of having figures or money or values attached to such risk. And in the case of the quantitative one, it really comes with value. So for instance, if you do not start a business, sorry, that just came out of the blues. If you don't start a business, you are losing out on some potential profit. So be it £10, $10, whatever currency in your country you have, maybe even 10 million pounds, dollars, or whatever currency you may be using. So you can really quantify what the impact of not doing or even doing something is. You can quantify it. There are different tools you can use to really kind of quantify risk. So there are some tools called the effect factor or the single life expectancy of an activity happening. So you can use those tools as those kind of methodologies to quantify your risk. Some people call it could be like annualized risk occurrence of some sort. So you can have some kind of value, like if a risk happens annually, how much does it cost, or what value can you attach to it? So those are the kind of quantifiable way you can have it. And what you want to do if you want to treat this, sorry, do not pay attention to all my images there. So I'm just kind of looking for images to make the presentation to be relatively look a bit tidy and maybe well presentable. So don't be focused on this object too much. So going back to my topic in terms of risk treatment. So what do you want to do? So you want to mitigate a risk. That is, you want to really kind of make sure the impact is low. You want to reduce it, and so those are ways you can manage a risk, or you can treat a risk. You definitely want to reduce it. Like I said in my previous slide, there is no way you can have a zero risk anything really. So even whatever business, whatever job you are in, whatever project you are doing, there are risks attached to everything. So what you want to do is just to mitigate it by reducing and make sure even if the risk does happen, it doesn't really overwhelm you or even kind of cause some form of existential threat to your organization or to your business. And some of the ways you can do that is actually by even transferring risk. Like I said, whether you transfer it, you can still not transfer 100%. So there are still some risks you have to take on, but you can transfer by buying insurance or transferring some of those potential risks to insurance company to inherit for you. So it's just similar to how we get insurance for our health or for our travel insurance or even for our car insurance. So like if anything were to happen to your car, so sometimes they will buy you a new car. Sometimes they will part fund you getting a new car depending on what kind of policy you have. So you want to just transfer the risk a bit so that you can, because if you remember, some of them, the insurance policies, particularly for car insurance, you will have to pay some excess, right? So the excess means you are only transferring some of the risks to them. You are not giving them the 100%. Obviously, if you are giving them the 100%, you pay more premium. So those are the kind of things you need to remind yourself. And acceptance of risk means you just want to go into it, take the risk, and whatever happens. So you rather take the risk than not take it at all. So there are a lot of examples for that. They've told you about how volatile the economy is, and maybe some part of the world or even some industry some industries that it's very risky, but you want to take your chance. So you are accepting the risk. So whatever happens, you live with the consequences. So you just kind of accept it. And I'll be going into practical ways of all of these treatments. The other one is just almost the opposite of acceptance. Is you want to avoid the risk completely. And how do you do that? It means if they told you a business venture is volatile, so you have the option to say no, I'm not getting into this. Or if they told you like this industry is quite unpredictable, just completely say, no, this ain't for me. So those are the kind of ways you can do that. You can either accept it and just kind of take the risk, or you can go completely move away from the risk and not take it at all. But like I said, there is a risk of you not partaking of the largesse, if there is anything like that will probably accrue from you taking a risk. So, and I'm sure you've heard it before, the higher the risk, the higher the return. So some people take a risk and put maybe tens of their currency into a business, and maybe they get 10 back, and whereas some people put 100 in and they get 1,000 back or something like that. So you have to live with the consequences, which is the inherent risk of either taking a chance or not taking a chance at all. And the other point here, one of the treatments is how you can actually share risk. Some people can actually interchange it with transfer, but not so in some cases. And I will try and talk about why it is not really so in some cases. Yeah, how you can share risk. I'll try and give you some example. Yeah, it could be seen, or it could seem to some people that they are quite the same with transfer, which is this one here. But bear in mind that not so much. But just how you kind of share your risk. Maybe similar with the insurance company, or similar with third party. Maybe even similar to you going into a joint venture rather than you going alone. So you want to split the risk and say, okay, should anything happen, I don't want to lose 100%. And should I, obviously, if you knew you were going to succeed, most likely you would have done it alone. But it's just because of the risk that exists, that's why you are like, okay, rather than taking the 100% risk, let me try and share with somebody, look for a partner, look for a business venture, a joint venture kind of equity investment company, or even a friend or another business that you can go into the business together. So I think those are the kind of ways you can share your risk. And the other one is, like I said before, is risk reporting. So I'll not be dwelling on this. Like I said, there is always what you call the inherent risk and the residual risk. So this particularly reporting, you are reporting after you have done you have taken all the other steps, you have tried to reduce it, you have tried to transfer the risk, you have tried to even share the risk. You still realize there are still some residual risks, no matter how little they are. But how you need to keep capturing this risk and keep either noting it down, or reporting it to your leadership, depending on your organizational structure or depending on your business. Just kind of making sure you are still aware this risk is still there. Okay, if it's static, or if it's going down, or if it's the same thing, what do you need to do to keep it down, or to just know that, okay, it is still there, we are still aware of this. But I'm sure while it's still there, you can still kind of make sure it keeps going down, rather than just kind of being there without any change. So these are some of the examples I'll be talking you through as we progress. Okay, here's a real topic, as I've said before. So I've talked about the overarching risk, but I want to really kind of focus on the risk appetite and the risk tolerance. Yeah, those are the 2 points I want to talk about. So the risk appetite is an organization's management or a person's willingness to take a risk. So is their organization's capacity and their willingness to take a risk. Whereas the tolerance is actually to what extent they are willing to maneuver and go over and above their appetite. So there is an appetite, you are willing to take the risk. However, by how much you are willing to extend your willingness, your capacity to actually take that risk. I think that those are the difference. You want to take it a notch up or a notch further. That's what tolerance means. You want to maneuver. Most likely, some people can say over and below, but generally, tolerance means you want to kind of take it to the higher level. It means you are willing to even. I'm trying to choose my word carefully. So you're willing to really kind of stick your neck out even the more by really going over your appetite, which I'll be talking us through in the use cases I have lined up for us. I hope these will make sense by the time I've talked about the use cases that I have here. So, okay. Wow, I know this is a topic that we are all. So, by the way, this recording is happening in August 2020, just in case you are listening to it many months and many years after now. So, this is happening in August 2020. So, as we all know, since March or before March of 2020, there has been a pandemic that almost shut the entire world down, brought the economy to its knees, and a lot of people have lost their lives and their loved ones and even their livelihoods as a result of this pandemic. So this is the example that I'm not taking lightly, but I just wanted to kind of just kind of point our attention to something that that I think may be relevant, and all of us may be able to get one or two things from this particular example here. So we know COVID is a pandemic that's really kind of, like I said, brought most of the businesses, most of the world down to its knees, to the extent that no aeroplane in the air flying as a result of that. Many borders, or I dare say all borders, have been shut down, or airspace have been shut down, except for emergency or for goods and services that keeps the world running, like drugs and other things. So most of the things we have done from March thereabout 2020 is like we have all done so many things online, bought things from abroad, and so a lot of logistics is happening in terms of how all those goods and services, particularly goods, are shipped from one country to the other, rather than people traveling actually to those destinations themselves. So I think that's what I just kind of wanted to remind us. But my focus here is really kind of talking about what we've all come to know and start even using until except you are living in some part of the world, until sometime in March, many of us never thought we're going to be wearing a face mask or a face shield, as you know. But now we are having to understand that we need to start wearing them because they said COVID-19. I'm not a medical expert in any way, so do not take my word for it. But of course, listening to the news, I think in one way or the other, we've all kind of been armchair doctors, disease control people, epidemiologists, and the like. So virologists and something like that. We just kind of picked up a few things and pieces here and there. So talking about the face mask and the face shield. So that is my definition. So, and I could be completely wrong with all these the names I've given them, but I think that's what they call them: face mask and face shield, right? So what I'm trying to talk about, the risk appetite and the risk tolerance, right? So the medical people for some time, they were really kind of short of this personal protective equipment for some time until government and other businesses really kind of tried all their best to. Some people have been innovative, trying to create some of this equipment by themselves, and some other businesses came to really kind of supply all these PPEs to all of us, to the frontline workers, particularly at the very early stage. And now during this time, so some medical people, and maybe rightfully so, they will say, okay, our risk appetite would be the worst case. We'll use two of these items. So we'll have a face shield and a face mask, right? So that we'll have the two of them. So that will be our risk appetite. But our tolerance really is maybe we need to have one of them. So maybe we have like a face mask if there are no face shield. But we will not go into the hospital without any of the two. We will not go into the hospital without having any of these two PPEs at all. I think that is the way we can explain risk appetite and risk tolerance in this case. So they are willing to have any of these two. Actually, we can all relate with this. That's what I thought I should use this use case. And this other use case is a kind of project management way that I'm sure we've probably all heard about it as well. So in project, we talk about the time, the quality, and the cost, maybe the budget as well. I'm not really kind of going into the details, but I know some people will say, no, it's more than this. But generally speaking, there are three factors to a project. You talk about the time to deliver the project, you talk about how good the project needs to be in terms of the quality of the deliverables, and you talk about the cost at which the project needs to be delivered. So obviously we've heard the higher the quality, the more money you have to spend, and the more time likely it will take as well. And so those are the kind of trade-offs that businesses and people and organizations try to balance at every point in time to make sure, okay, if they don't have enough budget, then maybe they may have to downplay or downgrade the quality a bit, or accept a relatively low quality deliverable, and so the time may actually be longer, even though it's going to be less quality. But I think what we are saying in our case is that what is the tolerance or the risk the risk appetite here. So the risk appetite for businesses maybe in terms of cost. So they can afford, for instance, to spend 10 million. So that would be their appetite. They can afford to spend 10 million, right? Or if push comes to shove, like we have probably heard before, they do not mind going to 1.2 million. So that would be their tolerance. They will not be able to spend. So maybe the 200K will probably be the contingency. Like, okay, I'm not willing to spend more than that. And so that will be how some people see their risk appetite and their tolerance. In terms of time as well, they might say, okay, I want my deliverable or my product to be out. For instance, if you're in the US or the UK, for instance, they might say, okay, in the US, I want my product to be out in October. knowing fully well that by November, closer to end of November, there is a sales project that or sales scheme that most retail businesses come up with, and even across to the following week as well. Uh, uh, Cyber Monday and Black Friday, the likes. In the UK, it's the Black Friday and the Cyber Monday just kind of coming up over the last few years. But generally speaking, my understanding is that it's a US phenomenon, basically. So they're willing to, as their risk appetite, they will they would like the product to be out by the end of October so that they will know like they are ready to go. However, as a way of tolerance, they are willing to wait 2 weeks over the end of October. So like second week of November. But anything more than that, they are unable to wait. So I think that's the way many organizations measure this in their risk management and assessment. So in the UK, for instance, we have what we call this December 26th sales that happens as well, which most products goes to like half the price, even though you may have to wake up quite early to get some of them, or you can buy most of them online or some of them online, but most times you may have to be in the stores very early yourself to be able to get a good deal before everyone else does. But with the social distancing and the lockdown now for the foreseeable future, obviously the lockdown is eased, but in terms of social distancing and people concern for their health and stuff, so maybe most of this will be coming online now, but they will still be saying the UK retailers, for instance, will still want their products, if it's not out by the end of November, for instance, they would like it to be out like 2 weeks, maximum 3 weeks in December. So that will be their tolerance, the third week in November. So whereas the appetite will be that we want it by the end of November of whatever month, so that they will know like these products are really readily available for it to be sold to people, whether online or physically. So I think that's the way this is measured in project management context. And I think the other one that we would have probably heard or done before is just similar to what I've kind of said before. There is always an inherent risk if you do not go into a business, if you do not do something, you are either missing out on something as well. And if you go into the business, there is always some form of risk that you are taking, or some chance you are taking. So just similar to what I have here. So if you went into a business, for instance, let's assume this is like a $10,000 investment. So your risk appetite may be, okay, I'm just using this example. I would like to have my money back, my 10,000 that I've invested, particularly after a year. So that would be the worst case, which is your risk appetite. I would like to have my 10K back, or 10,000 whatever currency back. But your tolerance will be, okay, I do not mind giving up 100 or 1,000 there. So if I cannot climb up to here, I would not want to go here, but at least I don't mind losing one or two of these coins here, or this money here. So that would be my risk tolerance. So instead of getting my 10,000 back, I do not mind getting my 9,000 or just over 9,000 plus back. So anything below 9,000, I don't want to take such a risk. I think it's a very calculated risk, and I think that's the risk threshold or risk tolerance of that person. They do not want to lose more than 1K of their investment, particularly after a long time. So I think that's the way people and businesses measure their risk appetite and the risk tolerance here. And I'm just going into some form of IT a bit. I would probably have liked not to start here, but I think it's okay to start here as well. So from an IT perspective or security perspective or cyber security perspective, I might add, by the time you are meeting somebody for the first time, so let's say someone is contacting you via whatever means, so let's say Facebook or other means, or whatever means, maybe they contacted you somehow, and I know a lot of you will be thinking, how would they have contacted you? There are other means you could have been contacted outside of these two sources. You could have been contacted by DMs or by direct messages or by chat or by Facebook or other means for whatever reasons, and the person want to actually take the conversation forward. They are asking for your email and for your phone number. Generally speaking, I don't think you may not really see anything so particular about these two items. So maybe you can say, okay, I'll give you one, so which is your tolerance, your appetite. However, you can actually give them both as well, because you are saying, this is not really like something that really identifies me, even though your email in most cases do identify you. However, you do not mind giving out these two information to someone. Maybe they want to actually have a more detailed conversation, which they may not be able to share over the DMs they've been contacting you through before, over the Facebook or whatever chat messages you might have been using before. So, and they are seeking for any of this information or even both. So giving them both will be okay. I will not be able to give you more than these two information. So by the time they are coming to actually ask if you're in the US or somewhere else, they're asking you for your date of birth or your social security number, or if you're in the UK, they're asking you for your national insurance number and maybe your date of birth as well. Those are your very sensitive personal information that you not like to share with anybody, particularly in addition to these two information that you've already shared with them, because you think like, this person already has everything that is supposed to be known by me alone, and maybe even by maybe by some authorities, maybe, but generally it's supposed to be known just by you, and they are asking for these two information and even more. You'll be like, no, I'm able to go this far, this is my tolerance, but I'm able to just give you one or the other, which is my appetite that I'm able to give you, because I do not know you, whether you are a fraudster or you are trying to scam or dupe me or something. Okay, with these two, because these may probably not tell anyone where you live, who you are, maybe, even though generally your email may be able to tell someone who you are, but not in all cases. But let's assume it's just as I've written it, xxxx@email.com does not really identify you, but most email does. But I'm just kind of using this example that it doesn't identify you. So your threshold, in terms of your tolerance, will be you give them both of this information and nothing more, or you give them one of these, which is your appetite and nothing more. So that's in this context. So if they're asking for your DOB or your social security number or your NI number, national insurance, in the UK, you not give them any of those things because they could actually be fraudsters, or they could actually be someone who wants to dupe or scam you, so which you have to be wary about. Yeah, and as well, I'm sure depending on which part of the world you are listening, watching, or participating in this presentation, you have heard what we call the GDPR before. GDPR is what we call the General Data Protection Regulation. So it's particularly an European Union compliance requirement for how information is gathered, collected, created, used, maintained in an accurate way, and safeguarded, basically. And non-compliance to this regulation, this kicked off on May 25, 2018. So, and the penalty for loss or carefree or insecure management of the data of European Union citizens meant you'll be penalized for a 4% of your turnover, or 20 million euros of your global turnover if you are like a global organization, whether you are global or not. So your total turnover, and this is not profit. This is your turnover of what you have earned before tax, before anything, and this penalty is quite high for a lot of businesses, be it big or small. And what you want to do, many organizations will say to themselves is that, okay, my risk appetite, even though I may have a lot of money, my risk appetite will be the 20 million, because like I said before, in terms of assessment of your risk, it's better sometimes if you are able to quantify it. So in this case, you are able to quantify and say, okay, this is my risk appetite. But for an organization whose turnover was 1 billion, for instance, whatever currency, let's say euros, 1 billion euros. So 20%, 20 million is relatively small, but 4% of your 1 billion euros is a lot of money. It's 40 million. So you do not really want to put yourself in this situation. Some of them will say, okay, my appetite will be, let's say they are even able and willing to pay this 20 million penalty. However, if you lose people's data, their personal identifiable information, you need to pay some compensations as well to those people. In most cases, information that is lost is in thousands and millions, depending on what business you are doing. It's a lot of fraudulent people or attackers will not just come to your system to get information of one or two people. Obviously, if they are high profile, yes, they will do that. But in most cases, they want a lot more information of individual subjects, So they will want that, and that means you may have to pay some compensation to those people. So even on top of your 20 million appetite, 20 million euro appetite, you probably will say, okay, on top of that, to account for the compensation of those data subjects whose information has been lost, I'm able to put aside another tolerance money of, let's say, 10 million, and you see how you can actually compensate those people, and whatever agreed compensation you pay for them or to them. So maybe you say, okay, you don't want to go up to 4%, but you are willing to stay somewhere in between 20 million euros and 4%. And like I said here, the higher of the two, generally speaking, that's what you are penalized with, the higher of the two. So obviously, for anyone to get this kind of penalty, it means you have actually not adhered to any of the requirements of the General Data Protection Regulation for that to be the case anyways. I believe, personally speaking, have not seen or neither have I heard any organization so far that have been penalized this kind of penalty. I have not seen, and I'm not saying it hasn't happened, but I'm really kind of yet to hear of that. The people that have been penalized for general data protection regulation penalty. Organizations have been fined way more than this, millions and millions of money, but I'm talking specifically on data protection. I am really yet to see that. And I think those are the ways organizations will look at how they want to define their risk appetite and their risk tolerance between just kind of choosing what they want to do and how they want to mitigate themselves from being penalized this amount of money. What they want to do is that you want to do all that is needed to be done to safeguard the information of your data subject, how you either encrypt, whether at rest or in flight, to make sure there is no fraudster or a way that man in the middle can gain access to the information that is going in and out in transit by whatever means. Maybe someone is completing a form or making some transactions or something. You want to make sure they are using the required encryption algorithm to be able to fulfill that. And how you actually manage or keep your network is important to really kind of beating this penalty down, because it's not a matter of if you'll be affected. It's a matter of when you can actually be compromised. And compromise does not necessarily mean your data or a data subject information has been taken. It may have been compromised in any way, and information that may actually be more important to you as well, like your intellectual properties. They are really important to you, and what you want to do as much as possible to safeguard getting penalized by implementing some of the controls that are required, like I said, some perimeter defenses, some encryption for your data at rest and in flight where necessary, the information you put in storage, in archive, to make sure your control plane is cannot really kind of be compromised, and you actually have what we call defense in-depth mechanism in place. So I'll not be talking about all of that here. So hopefully, as we go ahead, we'll be seeing some use cases as well. And here you see the how information can be lost. So you've already, if you've done some of the points we talked about in the GDPR, so this will prevent data losses and will prevent, at least will mitigate or minimize the data that can be lost. And even if it were lost, it will mean most likely the hacker will not be able to use the information if your encryption algorithm is one of the good ones out there that will make it difficult for attackers to be able to make sense or actually use the information they've taken from you. So if you did all of this, that's how you can actually reduce the risk of any compromise, or even if the compromise was successful, of their ability to actually make use of those data. And there are ways you can be compromised. You could be compromised by viruses and by other way of scamming your IT assets. You cannot go into I'm trying not to go into the technical bit of it, like maybe you could have been infected by SQL, some form of injection, including SQL, how you actually protect and and detect all of those is something you want to do. So these are the kind of sensitive information, even if you are in what we call the payment card industry. For instance, there are regulatory requirements of you as well to protect your perimeter defenses and the information of your cardholders. Some information that are very important, not just their names, but some information, particularly at the back of the card, most times called the CVVs. Those information are very important. How you want to safeguard those information so that both in transit at rest, those information are either not there at all or they are completely made unreadable or inaccessible to people who do not have right access to see them. So I think those are the things you want to do and make sure doesn't those information is well managed. Like we said in GDPR, they are the data subject. In payment card industry terms, they are the cardholders. The information of your cardholders are well protected and prevented from attackers. And as a business as well, so as an organization, maybe your data center, for instance, I'm just kind of trying to give us like real use cases. These are use cases that has happened before, and will probably continue to happen as well. Even particularly in this time of cloud, that a lot more organization is using cloud more than before. Like I said, this webinar is being recorded in August 2020. So August 2020 is where and when a lot of activities happened more online than physical. So a lot more people worked from home compared to before. So that is why this particular topic is more important than it was before, because people are unable to go to work physically, and the only way they can do that is a lot of things are done in the cloud, or maybe even in the private cloud, which may be their own data center that they own, or maybe even in the public cloud, which is owned by the major cloud service providers in Microsoft Azure or AWS for Amazon and the rest of them, Google Cloud, GCP, and the list goes on and on. So what we're talking about is how it relates to the risk appetite and the risk tolerance we are talking about. So if there was any outage, so what happens? Because I know many service providers definitely will tell us, and rightfully so, at least so far, is that whatever pricing model you have, they are able to guarantee some resiliency and some availability of so many nines, maybe 99.999% of the time that they will be up. And how you want to define that or accept that with your risk appetite and your risk tolerance. So your risk appetite may be in terms of your RPO and your RTO. So how you can actually recover point objective against your recovery time objective. So recovery point objective, just for some viewers or listeners who may not know. So recovery point objective is how much information you can lose that your business will not suffer existential threat. How much information you can lose. So the information that you might be able to lose, which will serve as your risk appetite, may actually be like let's say half a day information or 1 day information. So, but you can say, okay, as a business, my risk tolerance is actually let's say 1 day or 2 days tolerance at the most. Once and if I lose more than 2 days, my business actually suffers existential threat. And I think these are the things that drives what you need to do to either minimize this or to make sure your risk appetite and your risk tolerance are not breached in any way. And by that, I mean you can, in the cloud phenomena, you can use some availability mechanism, such as how you can actually have high availability, meaning if you have your data that is spanned across multiple availability zones, so you can actually have your information up and running should anything happen to the primary data center where the particular information is hosted. And if it's going to take time in terms of not the in terms of you are not operating high availability, but you are operating disaster recovery. So meant disaster recovery meant something has to completely go down, then you have to restore. And that is where the RPO, recovery point, and the recovery time objective actually comes in. So how you are able to recover, and how long it takes you to recover, which is the recovery time. So if you have like a half a day information that you can spare to use, then maybe it's going to take you like 2-3 hours to restore those information. But if you lose 1 day information, then maybe obviously it's going to take you longer to actually recover that. So those are the kind of things you need to factor in when you are defining within your internal security or IT policy that, okay, how much time do we have? You see most organizations saying, okay, if they are only praying and hoping that even though they do not mind 4 hours, 4 hours, which probably represent half a day, 4 hours of the working time or information being lost, but they would rather that not happen. But the worst case is maybe the whole day information can be lost, but they would like to get back to where they were at least before the information was lost. So I think those are the things that they will need to factor in. And I think the other way you can look at it is that how long can you actually afford to be down in terms of the outage? If there was power outage, for instance, so can you, particularly if most and all of your information are hosted in a data center, whether a private data center or public data center, so like just as this example, you can afford to be down for 4 hours, but anything longer than that is really stretching it to your risk tolerance. So you have to be mindful. And I think, like I said before, most managed service providers and even cloud service providers, they promise their availability of, like I said, 9.9, 999, 5969 number of hours or percentage they normally will be up for, and you have to work within that. Like I said before, in one of my risk treatments, how you actually want to share this responsibility. So this could be one way to actually share such responsibility, in which if a service provider defaults on its outage or on its availability SLA to you, how do you make sure they take part of the responsibility? They are penalized for it. And I think that is one way you can share your risk treatment with a service provider. In this case, that means they will have, some of them have got some readily made way of compensation, and some of them you may have to impose and agree with your service provider during the bid and during the your contract, maybe it's master contract or whatever contract you are signing with them. That, okay, this will be the penalty if you do not meet your SLA of availability. So you have to agree that and contractually sign between the two of you. And I think this is the point that many of us we've probably been part of, we witnessed or we've carried out by ourselves before. So in terms of the vulnerabilities, so we have what we call the common vulnerabilities and exposure rating, and this is how it is really measured. So yeah, maybe you can ignore this number. Generally speaking, you have the low, medium, high, and critical. So as a business, you may have an internal policy that once there is a critical vulnerability and a patch is released for that, you would like that to be done as soon as possible. And by your definition of as soon as possible, it could be during any off-peak period. It could be like, for instance, even though you are a global organization, but you probably look at the fact that there are some time when a lot less people are on the network or on the particular platform, and you want to implement or deploy the patches, whether it's security or reliability patches that is being provided. But in most cases, let us say security patches that have been provided by the operating system vendor or maybe the application specific vendor. So you can say, okay, once it is 5 p.m. in a particular region where you expect a lot more people would have stopped either working or not on the platform anymore, so that even though there will be a few more people or a few hundreds or thousands still using it, but it's not as much as between 9 and 5 that some people would have finished. So you say, okay, at 5:30, please can you install this? Obviously, you expect that this has been tested and probably taken care of. So this meant your risk appetite is, if it was high, we can wait a lot longer. We can wait a weekend or something. Or if it's critical, we have to do it like almost immediately. That will be our risk. In this case, that will be our risk tolerance, that we cannot wait beyond 20. We cannot wait beyond the night, which is from 5 p.m. that everything has to be done. And you can look at it from different ways as well. So criticality may mean different things to different people. So you can look at it and say, if it's a critical vulnerability, please can you do this within 5 hours of its release? Obviously, you expect it to have been tested, So, but if it is high, can you do this within 24 hours of its release? So, but for your critical, even though you said your risk appetite is for it to be done within 5 hours, but you can actually wait like for 8 or 10 hours, which would be your risk tolerance for this criticality. Whereas in the high case, the high rating, you can say, even though I've said it can be done within the next 24 hours, which is your risk appetite, but you can actually push it higher by saying our risk tolerance is, can it be done within the next 3 days, or within the next 4 days, or within the next 5 days, because you feel you have the tolerance to actually stay a bit more days, should there be any justifiable reason for that, to do that. But definitely you are working on your internal policy to achieve your deployment and your implementation of this. And the last one, which is similar to vulnerabilities management, which is patch management and maintenance windows. So it's similar to what I've just kind of discussed. So the maintenance window may just be a regular thing that you do as an organization. So You can have a maintenance window, which is like what you just do, like maybe every week or every month, or however your policy defines it. So you have said, as an internal policy, we start our critical servers, like we need to reboot them, we need to turn them off and make sure everything is up and running or still effective. Not just because you have recently downloaded some patch or deployed some patch on them, but you just want to make sure you go through these cleansing and monitoring of this system, that you open them, you try to maintain them as defined by your policy, internal IT or security policy, that this has to be maintained every week or every fortnight or every month, depending on what that policy is. This may just be because you either recently, this may be because for all the recent patches to actually be fully implemented, or that you just kind of follow your cycle like that. So in the case of, if you are doing it every week, or let's say every week, that will be your risk tolerance, because yours might just be for efficiency or stability purposes, not because there is a virus or there was an attack or anything. It was just for the performance and stability purpose of your environment. That's why you are really kind of very maintaining your IT assets regularly at a specific cycle window period. But you can say, okay, our risk tolerance is, for whatever reason, maybe something happened that we can afford to wait like extra week for this maintenance to happen. It could be maybe because in most cases you have different environments. You have like your testing environment, deployment environment, and your production environment. So the reason it could be because you recently you did the maintenance window for the testing environment, and you realized, oh, there were some challenges with that environment. So as a result of that, you can really use that as a test bed or as a test case for the production environment, and say, okay, since we had challenges during this window for the test environment, can you wait for the maintenance window of the production environment for until we know what actually caused the root cause of the problem with the test environment. I think those are the things you can do that can actually make you extend your risk appetite window for your maintenance window and stretching into to your risk tolerance, meaning actually taking a lot longer for you to actually carry out a maintenance window for the production environment. So I think that is it about the patching. So as I said before, so the conclusion here is just to really kind of point your attention and try to demystify what is being said, or how we have used the risk, and the risk as the overarching, but particularly risk appetite versus risk tolerance. So how risk tolerance has kind of been used interchangeably with risk appetite, generally speaking, or loosely speaking as well. But I'm just kind of trying to demystify that and trying to explain why you should have your risk tolerance and your risk appetite. So your risk tolerance will be how you want to have a management or a person is willing to take what they are willing to take, the risk they are willing to take. Whereas the risk tolerance is to what extent they are actually willing to go above and beyond their risk appetite they have already set. So they've already set a risk appetite of their readiness for 20 million euros for the GDPR example, for instance, but they are able to push it to 30 million euros so that they can accommodate the compensation for the data subject whose information has either been lost or stolen, and be able to compensate those people for just be able to compensate them depending on how the GDPR have mandated them to approach the loss of the data, of the compromise of the environment, or their irresponsible way of handling the data of their data subjects. So I hope this really kind of helps us a bit. And if you have any comment, do not fail to to send your comment to the information that will be provided on the screen, or maybe in the description below, depending on which platform you are watching from. So do subscribe, do send us your information, do encourage this presentation to continue. We'll have subsequent and relevant topics to discuss every now and again. And do feel free to follow us, and hopefully you've gotten or you've gone away with some relevant and helpful information in this presentation. All right. Thank you, irrespective of where you're listening from Asia, Pacific, from North America, from Europe, from Africa, from any part of the world you may be listening from at whatever time of the year or how many years from now you may be listening to this. Hopefully this will be like a timeless topic that will still be relevant in many years to come. So thank you for listening, and see you on another day. Thank you so much. Bye.